wisdom differs greatly from secular wisdom. The Torah is a system that requires us to learn and then to do, right? That is, we learn to act out the Torah. We acquire intellectual knowledge, and then we're tasked with integrating it into ourselves and then expressing it through how we live our lives. Right? So the system of Torah is the mitzvahs that we're commanded to follow and do. And the Torah expects us to not be stagnant people, but to be people who grow and work on ourselves, refine ourselves, and change and, aspire to be more than we are. Okay? So the Jewish approach to knowledge is that all knowledge must lead to action, or it's not considered knowledge. Learning something for the sake of learning it. Should I?
Oh, no, okay.
We're going to pause, Rabbi. Should I start from the beginning?
No.
Okay, you'll edit this part out.
It's okay. Okay, go ahead.
Should I go ahead? All right. And unpause. Okay, so we have to take what we know intellectually and incorporate it into how we express ourselves in the world. In Pirkei Avos, it says that anyone whose fear of sin is greater than knowledge, then everything that you learn, you're going to keep. Okay, so think about that. If you learn something, you learn, a better, more meaningful way to express yourself, however it is, through whatever mitzvah. If you understand that if you don't do it, that would be a great sin that would take you farther away from Hashem, then that protects you, right, from losing that knowledge that you've attained, right? So if what you learn you understand is emes, any Torah knowledge you attain, if you know it's emes and that it reflects the correct derech that you should be on, then for sure you're going to stick to that emes because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. So in Judaism, our deeds, our actions, how we live our life, that protects our wisdom. So we understand on the flip side that if somebody learns just for the sake of learning, just so they can have another degree, just so they can be the smartest person in the room, just so they can get on, what is that, like, trivia show on TV? Yeah, like Jeopardy, where all the smart. So if you're acquiring knowledge just for the sake of acquiring knowledge, you're not going to really hold on to it. That knowledge won't endure. Okay, so now, how do the Greeks look at acquiring knowledge? The Greeks made a very strong distinction between knowledge and action. The way they approached it was what I do and how I act are two totally separate things. What I teach, what I learn, and who I am are distinct from one another. And this is how the Greeks reconciled for themselves that they were great philosophers, they were great thinkers, and yet they lived lives of depravity and just immorality, horrible. So the Greeks defiled the Jewish approach to learning. And there were Jews who were attracted to the Greeks because Jews are attracted to learning, and they would sit around in togas and they would discourse all day. And many Jews, unfortunately, grew too close to the Greeks. Greek philosophers and orators, they could espouse tremendous wisdom and yet live their private lives of depravity, we said. And there were Greek scholars who did not necessarily have any moral authority because they had no moral code. Okay? A scholar at that time could behave in any way they wanted and it wouldn't affect their scholarship at all. People would still hold them in high esteem and have tremendous respect for them. So the Greek philosophy, we understand, is homeocentric, meaning that man is the center of everything and everything revolves around man. For the Greeks, nothing exists outside of a human being. So how from a Jewish perspective, we understand miracles. We understand God performs miracles for us every day, all the time. The Greeks can't reconcile that at all. They did believe in gods, but they manipulated these gods, and that's what idol worship is. Okay? Hanukkah, we know, is a holiday of outright miracles. But for the Greeks, it was Aristotle who said that miracles mean man is not in control at all. And with this Greek viewpoint, there can't be any spiritual growth. They just could not accept the fact that man would not be master over absolutely everything in the world. So the Greeks didn't have a problem with Jews having physical freedom. They weren't looking to wipe us out, right? They just wanted to subjugate Jews spiritually. And as a matter of fact, it was in Rabbi Kitov's book, Book of Our Heritage, that I was reading today. The Greeks actually thought that they were benefiting the Jews. They thought they were doing something good for us by forcing us to accept Greek culture and Greek heritage and Greek language and all of the Greek wisdom and knowledge. And because their aim was to enlighten us and to free us from the shackles of our primitive beliefs. And there were a lot of other nations who did feel that they were being enlightened by taking on Jewish life and Jewish philosophy. There were actually Jews who thought they were being enlightened. That's who we refer to as the Hellenists, right? Everybody's heard about them. So the Greeks were seeking to impose the spirit of their culture upon the Jews, and they wanted to lead everybody to believe in man's prowess, his strength and power, the beauty of man's taste, and the reliability of man's intellect. But in Greek life, man himself is a deity, right? Man himself is a god. And in the Greek view of life, all of man's faculties serve one purpose, and that is himself. All right? So this is the ultimate form of idolatry. The Greeks completely separated knowledge and action. Now, we said in the beginning, the Jewish Torah perspective is that deeds and knowledge go together. The Greeks were able to totally separate that. There was no one scholar who had higher moral authority than another, and the Greeks themselves actually learned Torah, but they just did it for a mental exercise. Right? It was just a good mental activity for them, and it had no other attraction and no other value. The Greeks were actually willing to accept most of Torah because they felt it could be integrated into Greek philosophy, and they could take a lot of the mitzvos and make them part of Greek culture itself, and then it would just sort of fall away. But there were 3 mitzvos we've learned that they did seek to annul. One was Rosh Chodesh. It's Rosh Chodesh right now. Rosh Chodesh, how the Jews look at Rosh Chodesh is that we acknowledge that God controls time and that we have the ability to sanctify time. And the Greeks' view is the Greeks said, no Rosh Chodesh, because we're the ones who determine when festivals are. We control time. We're going to decide when everyone's going to be happy and when everyone's going to grieve. Shabbos was the second mitzvah. Why is Shabbos so critically central to the Jewish life? Because with Shabbos, we are proclaiming every week that God created the world, that everything is only in existence at every moment because God wills it. And the Greeks said, we're the masters of the world, and we're the masters of all the inhabitants of the world, and everyone and everything should bow to us. Remember, it's a homeocentric, a man-centric view of life. And the third mitzvah that the Greeks sought to annul was bris milah. When a Jewish boy has a bris milah, that little baby, that little neshama, is entering into a covenant. And part of that covenant says, body and soul are one. Body and soul are integrated, can't be separated. And that means that a small part of your physical self is elevated into the spiritual world and connected to it. And it means that your soul, which is purely spiritual, is connected to the earthly world, right? And The Greeks didn't, their viewpoint was the opposite. They said, no, the body is the unrestrained ruler of the world, and the spirit is the unrestrained ruler of that other world, and they're completely separate, body and soul. And that's how the Greeks could reconcile that that a body, a person can act like a pig and have the soul of an angel. That's how they made it work for themselves. All right, and then we said that besides these 3 mitzvahs, they tried to annul all the remaining mitzvahs. They said we can turn them into Greek rituals, which are really meaningless and they'll be forgotten eventually. So now that we understand the 2 different viewpoints of knowledge and wisdom, we can understand that it's not possible at all to reconcile the Greek view and the Jewish view at all. When we look at who are Jewish leaders, who are the leaders of our communities, of all Klal Yisrael, of our generations, these are Torah scholars whose ruchnius stems from scholarship. Okay. The reason to learn, the reason that anyone learns is to do tshuva and to do good deeds, right? To try and correct ourselves and elevate ourselves and become closer to the Almighty. So any scholar, Torah scholar, whose inside is not like his outside, is not a Talmid Chacham. Just because somebody might sit and learn all the time, just because somebody might attend 5 shiurim a week and has notebooks and notebooks and can give over Torah, if they don't have it on the inside, if they haven't internalized it and they don't truly believe it in their hearts and they don't live it, then there's a disconnect and there's something missing in the knowledge that they've taken on. Judaism is theocentric, right? We said homeocentric, man is the center of everything. Judaism is theocentric, which means God is the center around which everything revolves. Hashem controls our world, and this idea had no meaning whatsoever to the Greeks. So for Jews, we understand that the higher the level of ruchnius, of spirituality and connection that a person has to Hashem, the greater is our obligation to learn from Him, all right? And the greater moral authority that person has to be a ruler, to be a leader. Yesterday in a class we were discussing David HaMelech, and we were discussing the fact that he was the greatest king we had. He was a great general. He was a warrior in battle. He was tremendously powerful and influential. But that wasn't the primary reason. As much of a great leader he was in battle, helping the nation fight against external enemies, David HaMelech knew that it was equally important to help to strengthen and protect the spiritual and mental lives of the people. And that's why he dedicated so much of his resources and time and energy to singing songs of praise to Hashem and compiling Sefer Tehillim for us. So he was on a very high spiritual level, and he was a man of great, deep moral character. And that's why there was so much respect for him, and he had so much leadership. It says in the Sefer Bereshis, in the beginning of the Torah, that the soul of a person is a breath of Hashem. So when your soul, that means that when your soul is in charge of your body, that you can hear the voice of Hashem within you. You know that you're on the right derech. A Talmid Chacham is someone who knows and integrates Torah. A Talmid Chacham is someone whose body is dictated by his soul. That's a person who exercises restraint at the right times. It's a person who speaks with the voice of Hashem in a respectful, dignified, no lashon hara way. And it's a person who has humility, and that humility stems from living a life that is the agenda of Hashem, not a life that is me-centric, what's going to make me happy, what's going to make me feel good, which is different than doing the right thing all the time. There's just an interesting little side idea that I don't have a board to write now, but if you look at the word for Greek in Hebrew, it's Yavan, Yud Vav Nun. And if you look at those letters, It's basically the same little vertical stroke, and the yod is small, and the vav is a little bit longer, and the nun is a little bit longer. Just in going no direction except down. There's no growth. Every letter is just longer and more downward than the one before. And this is somewhat reflective of Greek philosophy. If you think about it, for Greeks, growth just goes up and down, but there's no outward growth whatsoever. There's no spiritual growth whatsoever. So, just another idea, in the Beis HaMikdash, the Greeks did horrible things. They sacrificed pigs. They built a gymnasium. They walked around completely naked in the Beis HaMikdash. We know that in Judaism, we cover our most sacred things. We cover mezuzahs, we cover our Torah, we cover tefillin, and we cover our bodies. What Judaism hides, what we value and we know is so important, is exactly what the Greeks revealed. The complete opposite. There's another nice idea that we know the ideal place to light our Hanukkah candles is in the home, in the doorway, opposite the mezuzah, if we remember. And so when we enter our homes, we enter with the mezuzah on one side and the Hanukkah candles glowing on the other. So we're surrounded by mitzvot. And the Greeks had decreed, among other things, that the Jews had to keep their front doors open. Okay? They wanted to destroy the Kedusha of the Jewish family. And so today we have an opportunity to light our candles right in our doorway. And we do this to show that we're still here, even though the Greeks are not. So we understand that speaking of covering things and keeping them private, we know the most private and hidden thing in the world is Hashem himself. Hashem is hidden, but he's also ultimately connected to us through miracles that the Greeks could never begin to understand. But we know that wisdom and learning and God and miracles aren't contradictory at all, but they're vitally integrated. And that's my shir. And I just want to remind everyone that there's so many learning opportunities for us women to increase our knowledge and wisdom. There are community shiurim and shiurim in the shuls, and there's online stuff, and there's partners in Torah. And if you want to learn something and it's not available, call a friend, start a chavrusa, and we should just all merit to continue to stay focused on the goal and grow our wisdom and our knowledge and become closer to the Almighty.
Amen.
And have a beautiful Hanukkah.